Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin rainbow chart as well as the price action and indicators. So let's start off with crypto fear and greed. And right now, you can see that crypto, we were up into extreme greed just yesterday, but now getting back into high greed. And that makes sense. What I've noticed lately is that the stock market is leading the crypto market just by a little bit. And if the stock market starts to go up quite violently or positively, then the crypto market will soon fall and vice versa. And right now, I believe the stock market, it's corrected down about 3%, something like that. So seems to be a good time for a correction, especially with the election. And you guys can see that as far as greed, we have been up in this 70s level ever since mid-October. And this is somewhat interesting because I've been talking about this in the videos the last couple weeks, and that is, you guys can maybe see like right at the bottom, this is October to November. Typically, there is somewhat of a correction or sell-off as far as how many points that is. All depends year to year. But there is somewhat of a correction leading up to the election and the election being in November. But then Q4, despite whoever wins, on average, markets are positive. So whatever side of the political spectrum you fall on, or maybe you hate both like I do, that we can start to look for more positivity in Q4. The one area where I'm feeling a little cautious of is I don't really feel like we've had the pre-election volatility that we've been promised, or the sell-off, and I'll show you that in the charts below. So maybe some of that's still coming, or at least don't be surprised if it does. And just quickly going over to the stock market fear and greed, you can see stock market recently ticking down into fear. Even on pie vesting, was up in over 80 in extreme greed and getting towards that neutral area. So just keep an eye on that. As far as the last year goes, this was a key moment for crypto, at least recently, that we did make a higher point in greed than we did back here in July. So we were in this downtrend, and now it does look, you can't deny, we have higher lows and now a higher high from this point. So the trend is now going up. Of course, as we talk about the rainbow chart and the cyclical nature that Bitcoin has shown us, that many of us, including myself, we are banking on Bitcoin dominance eventually having a rotation. And if you're new here, Bitcoin dominance, that is the overall percent of money that's in crypto that is in Bitcoin. And when that percent goes up pretty high and then starts to correct and go down, usually during those times you see inflows into the Bitcoin mining stocks, into altcoins, and many of those can do many multiples of gains for you. So the one key part of that is getting in the right altcoins, getting in the right miner stocks. You have to do your own research and take your own risks on that. As far as the alt season index, let's make sure we're looking at the yearly. We're doing more macro perspectives here. And you can see higher highs, higher lows. So as this is coming down, we can just draw an imaginary line. And I think we're getting towards that level where maybe there's somewhat of a bottom coming for the altcoins and Ethereum. I think it would be smart for us to take a look at Ethereum today, or even Total 3, and see where the charts there are at. And of course, going over to the rainbow chart, what do we notice is that Bitcoin right now, well, let's take the most accurate look. It's at 68,000. And when we go to the rainbow chart and we are going to early November, where would 68,000 fall? Well, that's in the green zone, the still cheap zone as they have it labeled. So getting above 81,000 on the rainbow chart, we would start getting into the yellow zone. We haven't been there since March. So even though Bitcoin has been in a descending channel ever since March, we have moved out of that channel, and we'll see if we get a corrective bounce and move up further. Well, by looking at the rainbow chart, the level we want to see get for Bitcoin to get into would be that 80,000 level. And as you can see, that goes all the way up to 108K for as high as that yellow level. So let's start looking at the charts. Here on the weekly, we have been bullish ever since here in September 16th of this year. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. We've been going up. Yes, there is a little correction here. That happens. You can see there's little corrections. But overall, since our buy signal, and really after retesting the bottom of this channel, we have still been going up into this area. Now, I did want to talk about the S&P 500. You can see, so I'm glad we looked at this. This is first time noticing it on the weekly. We do have a weekly sell signal. And one of the things I like to do is put on the Heikin-Ashi candles to show trends. And I'll show you the difference. Here's regular candles, a lot more noise. And if you're good with candles and their definitions, it's great. For me, it's just more stuff to memorize. So I like to say trends a friend. And you can see here that when we do get a sell signal, at least recently, it's gone down to the 20-week moving average. Now I do have, where are the other moving averages? Let's turn those on. It has gone down to the 100-week moving average all the way last year, a year ago. But otherwise, it's just been bouncing off the 20-week, even here a little bit lower. But if we went over to the daily, you can see the S&P right on that 50-day moving average. And typically a good, healthy correction, just on average, would be about 3 to 5%. And that's about where we're at. So 5% would just be closer to the 100-day moving average, somewhere around 5,600. So if the S&P goes down a little bit further, do not be surprised. And that might, again, front run or lead what Bitcoin's doing. If we're seeing fear in the stock market, some of that has been a leading indicator for crypto. So do not be surprised by that. And again, I talked about volatility in the markets. You can see volatility coming up a bit here in the 20s, but really nothing, obviously nothing as big as the yen carry trade. We don't have to get too much into that, but that big sell-off in Bitcoin that happened here, that's when we had that spike in volatility. So if we do get another spike in volatility, then these would be some levels to look at. And I would say that the important levels to watch for would be around 65,000. You can see here it's 64, 65. I'd say 65. And then you have the 200-day moving average around 61. And you can see the channel right there would be around 61. So if it were to get down to the 200, it would probably move on a trend. And this is just going as fast as possible without a major sell-off. It could run into the channel and the 200, somewhere around 61. So if it had any of that, could be some dip buying discount opportunities. But something that you may notice right now is in this descending channel that Bitcoin has been in since March. Where is the price right now? Well, this is an important back test. So it came out of the descending channel, came down in this gray line. That's the top from 2021. But you can see what's happened to the candles and the price. It's staying above the descending channel. So if this channel right here provides support and Bitcoin really doesn't close or go any lower, I think this is very bullish and we could see another push up. One other indicator I talked about last week, sometimes I run through different indicators to see, is there bearish divergence or anything like that? But one of the indicators I've looked at is this Hull Suite indicator. And in the past, when Bitcoin has moved underneath the ribbon, that it has had downward or sideways price action. But when it moves above it, it can be pretty bullish. You'll see how it back tests it, okay? Again, as it moves under, bearish, you can see it retested it, stayed bearish, came out of it, and when it came out of it down here, any of the buying opportunities in here would have been great. So going back to 2019, post mid-cycle top, you can see there was that descending channel like we have now. It did come out, but then it got back into it, and that's where the final landing zone was for Bitcoin. So I am wondering, all things being equal, if we did see something like 2019, that would mean that Bitcoin falls underneath this Hull Suite ribbon and then possibly gets back down to the lower end of the channel. That'd be somewhere around 52, 53K. We have the 100-week moving average in the 618 fib. Let me make sure the fib is on log scale. It is not, so I misspoke. This would be the 786 fib at around 50K. So if it did get under, lower part of the channel, 50K, that would be my most bearish scenario. And I'm only saying this to you not to be bearish or anything, but if these prices came in, have a plan if it does. To me, this would be max discount territory. I would be backing up the truck and putting in whatever my budget is, and maybe even next month's budget as well, because I'd say that'd be a good opportunity to buy. But again, on the daily, if Bitcoin, this is just price action, if it is able to stabilize here, let's turn off this ribbon guy here. If it is able to stabilize, I'd say that'd be pretty good for crypto or for Bitcoin. Let's take a look at a couple other indicators. Here's the MACD indicator on the weekly. You can see that it is moving positively into the green zone. So that looks bullish right there. Okay, MACD, that's showing bullish indicator, getting green. Let's take a look at, we'll do the RSI first. Just want to show you some different perspectives here. You can see it's moving on up. That's looking bullish. Let's go to the daily. Oh my God. Advertisements galore. Let's go to the daily here. And okay, we were talking about how there was some possible bearish divergence if we didn't get a higher spike. Guys, this is bullish. So we have a higher spike in the RSI. And the only way we would get bearishness is if we spike lower in the strength and we have a lower top, okay? Or if we spike lower and the price goes higher. If the RSI spike is lower and the price is higher, that's bearish divergence, okay? So this moving upward from these past areas, that's also bullish, even the base as well. So no bearishness, no bearish divergence. And I would like to take a look at the stochastic RSI on the weekly. You can see on the daily, it's pretty well bottomed. But this would be maybe a bearish bit of concern, is that you can see the stochastic RSI is reaching a peak here. Now, it can do this for a while, as shown back here. So it was at this price of around 36K. And then by the time I finished at this peak, you know, it got all the way up to 48K. And even as it finished this corrective move, you can see it didn't go lower than where it was back here. So stochastic RSI, I like to buy on the weekly when this flips positive and is moving into the shaded area. That's a good DCA strategy. And again, you're not always going to get the bottoms perfectly. It's really hard to do that. But that's how I dollar cost average in the altcoins I like. Just some things to look for. Last week, I was talking about time frame, seasonality, and going back to the Bitcoin rainbow chart, you can see that we've had these peaks that have been about 4 years apart. November 21 was the top of Bitcoin, December 2017, November 2013, okay? We've also had the bottoms about 4 years apart as well. And going over to the chart, I've mapped out the different bits of time just to show you the different narratives you might hear. Now, when Bitcoin is breaking a new all-time high, okay, or when it's broken its former all-time high, on average, it's been 300 days from the new all-time high back here to the peak. That would lead us to the end of this year, December, okay? The average from the very bottom to the next peak, 850 days, that would put us at March next year. The average from each halving to the next peak, again, just going by the prior cycles before, would put us out in August, closer to that 4-year cycle mark. My point is this, guys. You can make an argument for any sort of prediction that you want. And last week, I even talked about the average amount of time based on Bitcoin dominance peaking and altcoins or Ethereum bottoming against Bitcoin. And that even would show us a longer time frame. The point is this: predictions don't matter as much as your strategy and how you invest and make money. So if you're looking at which coins to buy, which cryptos, with which mining stocks, have a plan. Make sure you research, get your handfuls of stocks or crypto. Of course, nothing I say is financial advice, but have a plan that you can enact when the price is at those levels, whether it's the moving averages like I showed you, one of the other indicators like the buy sell signal indicator that I showed you guys. I'll put that one back on. There's multiple buy sell signal indicators I go over in my videos. This one shows nice dots. on the weekly. You could very simply turn your brain off by the weekly buy signals, whatever. Okay. Have a strategy now. So whatever prediction or whatever time frame happens, I don't care, because I have a strict strategy that helps me make money by buying in at the lower discounted values, whether it's the stochastic eye, dollar cost averaging in, and also I'd say just paying attention every week helps one be ahead of most people, because when the markets turn bearish, people aren't paying attention. Retail investors aren't paying attention. If you have your handful of, let's say, 5 to 10 mining stocks or cryptos, and you just check it for 10 minutes every week, once per, and you see where the value is, and you invest or spread out the money based on your budget, or maybe you don't because they're not at the values you want, it's not hitting your strategy, and you pull that towards the next month. Whatever you're doing, just stick to your strategy, because again, as a market psychologist, we want to look for value when there's fear. We want to use emotion as an indicator. Our emotions, our limbic system, our heightened emotions are one of the first things that get programmed into us before birth. And our thinking brain, our frontal lobe, is the last area of our brain to really fully develop, which finishes by the age of around 25, 26. Of course, you can still learn lots of new things. We can get into gray matter and all that in the brain. Don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but the point is this, is that the parts of our brain that develop first are tied to emotion. It feels good when the markets do good, when the news is good, when crypto is good, when your friends, everyone's making money. But guess what? When we're up here in that greed, that euphoria, the FOMO times, you're not buying at a discount. You're buying at a premium. And usually you're going to lose money sooner than later doing that. And some of you here, maybe you bought near the tops last cycle, okay? When you're paying attention, staying in the game, and you have your strategy, and you're looking for deals when there's fear, which, hey, there's fear in the stock market. Maybe that's going to, I believe, probably seep into the crypto market a little bit. I would guess. We'll see. Then you can look for those opportunities. So again, try to think like a market psychologist. Use emotion as an indicator. Let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. I've made the case that I believe Bitcoin dominance will top somewhere here around 62%. Now you can see it's at 60.5%, looking very bullish. So I would not doubt if there's a little bit of a pullback, but that 62% area is an area I'm looking for. There have been people talking about 60% because it hits the 618 fib. I believe if we take it off log scale, yeah, at the 618 fib, it's going to be really hard to see here, is right around 60%, okay? And that's where Bitcoin dominance is right now. It's right around there. If it were to get higher to the next fib, we're looking at the 786. And so maybe you're asking yourself, if you're new to my channel, you're like, how did this guy come up with the 62% number? And again, I'm not married to it. And this is just something I'm looking for, okay, guys? When I looked at the peaks of where dominance went last time, I noticed that it fell in line almost with this peak back here after dominance made a floor, and also this area once dominance had its first corrective fall. Okay, that's where it came in line, right near the top there. Okay, so I use that logic moving forward. I said, okay, where's there been some convergence of these trends? And here's where dominance first had its fall, okay, around 62%. And after forming its base and peaking, you can see there is these other trends right here, as well as peaks before. And so I'm just targeting that 62%. Again, maybe we hit the 786, maybe we stop at the 618. I don't care. The point's this: when dominance tanks, that's alt season. Now, the last two cycles, without getting into the time scale argument, how this would, one could argue that the top wouldn't be in 2026, just going off of this. But after Bitcoin dominance peaks, it forms a base, another peak, and then there's alt season. Forms a peak, makes a base, okay, September 2020, another peak, then it's alt season. And the true alt season, it's this big self here, lasts about 1 to 2 months, okay? We haven't even peaked yet. And so my thesis is we'll form a base somewhere, another peak, and then go down. Nothing says that has to happen, but I'm just looking for something like that to happen. The most important thing, really, though, is when dominance gets down here. I don't know when that's going to be, whether it's later this year, March 2026. To me, it doesn't even matter, but that's something I'm looking for. We've also talked about the Ethereum Bitcoin pairing and how this is yet to bottom. When it bottomed last time, that was around September 2019. And by the way, the peak of Bitcoin dominance, going back to Bitcoin dominance, that first peak was September 2019. You can see the date right there. We haven't even bottomed yet. And I'll just prove it so you don't have to trust me, bro. Okay. September 2019. You can see the date at the bottom, first peak of Bitcoin dominance. September 2019, by the way, you see that was the top. June, July. September was right here. Before there was a correction. So there was a correction at the time or right after Bitcoin dominance peaked. So just something to watch out for. Bitcoin dominance might peak at 60, 65, whatever, but then there might still be some corrective moves happening. Again, I don't know. We'll see. Something to keep in mind. Okay. As well as, I want to go back to the rainbow chart. Earlier in the video, we talked about the yellow zone being around that 100K number, 80 to 115. Okay, let's just give it a little bit of a rounded range. Well, what's curious about the 100K number, I'm going to keep showing you guys. This is how we look for price targets, by the way. When you're on log scale and you draw a fib from the high to the low, take your fib off log scale and you can see those extensions. Here, the 1618 is at 100K, which is in that yellow zone. Okay? It also converges where these two peaks are and also converges with this trend line Bitcoin's been in love with. And it also converges with the average from 300 days from the new all-time high to the peak. Again, from the Bitcoin dominance argument, there isn't enough time for dominance to form a base, peak, and then go down again by that time. Or if it did, it'd have to start doing that now. But I am curious to see, are all the signs here that are pointing to 100K, are we going to hit 100K and then have a bit of a correction and no alt season here, and that's going to come later on? I don't know. We'll see. But again, just be ready for these things. With all the various scenarios that have played out, you can see how that puts us at different points of time. And again, the reason I'm showing you this, guys, is people get in these self-fulfilling prophecies and they get their brains wrapped around one idea, and they get wrecked when their one idea doesn't come to fruition. I cannot emphasize enough, especially for you new people. You have to be comfortable being wrong and being learnable, flexible. Part of the reason me doing this channel is to help people learn without making expensive mistakes. So you're going to make mistakes when investing. It's going to happen. No one's perfect. You need a strategy that suits you and suits your tolerance. I know that I'm a naturally emotional person. It's part of the reason I work in the field of psychology and have for a decade. And I like helping people with those heavy emotions. So you want to be mindful of that with the markets. And I'm mindful of that. And that's why I don't trade, at least within months or lesser time frames. I take a more patient approach because that helps me use emotion as an indicator and remove my emotion from my strategy. The best decisions I've made in making money, whether it's stocks or cryptos, is when I've just been following my plan and not making emotional, impulsive decisions, whether to buy in at tops when there's FOMO and greed, or holding too long when there's been FOMO and greed, or being too scared to buy bottoms when there's a lot of fear. So that's why I'm saying, guys, enact your plan. Emotions are tricky, and they've gotten the best of me before. And so here we're trying to use that to our advantage. And if you know that's true about yourself, it may be best for you to also take a more patient approach, a trade vestor approach, if you will. Just try to have some patience. So if the market goes down, it doesn't affect you. You don't care. Or you are getting excited when it goes down. All right. Let's take a look let's go to Ethereum and just see what Ethereum's doing. We looked at the pairing. Now, we've talked about Ethereum moving up this trend line. And right now on the weekly, what do you notice? There is a sell signal here. So Ethereum possibly getting ready to get down to this trend line. Now, if it gets well below and is more than a wick, you'll see that's different than what's happened last time. But if it starts to have candle body closes below this and gets anywhere around the 0.5, I'm going to be calling anything under here discounted territory. Anything at the trend line or lower. So that's 2,300. And again, maybe if you love Ethereum, you could have a strategy to buy a certain percentage or invest a certain percentage at these levels. 2071. And down here, that would be my most bearish scenario. 1,700, 1,680. Down here, 1,324. I don't believe that would happen, but if it did, okay, again, the sky would be falling. I'm already seeing a lot of FUD and articles talking about Ethereum being dead and Ethereum's horrible. Again, just like I showed you guys, Ethereum Bitcoin pairing tends to bottom right when Bitcoin dominance tends to peak. That has not happened yet. And until it does, until we see on the moving averages and indicators that has happened, Ethereum could still go downwards and we could look for discounts. Now, if you're looking for Ethereum here at 2085 and you buy some Ethereum, okay, maybe we get a turnaround buy signal, great, goes up a little and then gets rejected and comes down here. Again, as a market psychologist, if you like something enough to buy it here, then you need to love it, love buying it here. You need to love that you can get it at a discount. I know our emotions are going to say, this sucks that it went down. But again, you got to see the forest through the trees and you got to have a plan and enact with it. And I encourage you all to, when you make your plan, literally write it down, put it in a Google, Excel sheet, whatever. Write down your plan and write down what do you do when the price goes lower? What are indicators you're going to use to dollar cost average in? That way you don't just buy in up here and then you're like, oh, I'm an idiot. It went down here. I'm not going to do anymore. Again, we want to have a solid strategy, remove our emotions, have a plan, test your plan, sandbox it, okay? Go back in time and look at times you would buy with your plan and see if overall that would have done well. Again, as my disclaimer says, prior market data is not enough to predict future results. So what we're trying to do here is manage our risk. We're trying to be smart. No one knows where the true bottoms are. Okay, if you catch it, great. But again, you could dollar cost average get a bunch of these based on buy signals or the stochastic RSI, the moving averages, whatever. But inversely, you can also look at selling and taking profits out in that way too. Any other indicators I want to go over here with you guys? I think I wanted to keep this under 30 minutes, and we're getting there. I'm so excited for the commercials to be done. My God, it's just way too many. If all the money that went into commercials went to other parts of society, we wouldn't have problems. I digress. I'm excited for this election stuff to be over and for us to see what is going to happen. Again, Q4 tends to be bullish. See if Bitcoin gets a bounce here. If not, watch that 65K area. On that ribbon indicator I showed you, that was where the ribbon is right now. It's around 65K. And that's where I believe the 50-day moving average is. It's around 65K. So you want to see 65-ish hold. If not, then we might see a little bit lower. And again, it's okay. We can look for discounts. So anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. And also, if you don't mind, answer this question. What price do you think Bitcoin is going to be by the end of this year? I think I'll put out a poll or a questionnaire too. What price do you think Bitcoin will be on January 1st, 2025? Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.